Hey nerds, what's up? Welcome back to Attack on Productions. It's Fluff here, coming back at you with another deck profile. Today, we're talking about Toppo Lock, but before we get into it, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that fun jazz stuff. So, this is what I've settled on as being the best Toppo Lock list for the current format. I don't know how viable it's going to be moving into the next format, depending on how prevalent we see green being, especially the new Sun Gohan deck. That is going to be a very uphill battle for us in general, because we are a Unison-centric deck. But aside from that, the deck is really fun. It has a lot of cheap tricks that it can do, and we're going to go ahead and get right into the profile. Looking at the leader's front side, typical auto, when you attack, draw one. The awakening condition is when you have 4 or less life or a Unison with specified cost of 2 in play. You untap 2 energy, take yourself down to 6 life, and flip the card over. On the backside, we still draw on the attack, but more importantly, are permanent. As long as we have a Unison with a specified cost of 2 in play, both ourselves and our opponent can only play 1 battle card per turn, which is the idea of quote-unquote Toppo Lock. So that's the leader. We'll move the leader to the side so we can kind of see it throughout the profile. Going into the deck, starting out, the most important part is the Unisons. We do play 4 Vegeta Unison of Fury. Activate main, switch one of your yellow cards to rest mode, and then add a marker to it. The -1, activate main. Your opponent can attack with battle cards with energy costs greater than their current energy until the end of their next turn. And then activate main, -3. Choose one of your opponent's energy, switch to rest mode. Then this card gets 5,000 power, double strike, and dual attack for the turn. This is our main Unison. This actually puts in a ton of work at slowing your opponent down. It's a great win condition for the deck, because once you get to 3, you just activate main, go up to 4, -3, you're 1 marker. You can swing in and try to kill for game. Then we run 2 of the SS Gogeta's Dynamic Unison. This is just a secondary Unison that we play. It helps us scroll through our deck for pieces that we may need. If we have dead pieces in hand, we can get rid of those dead pieces by sending them to the drop area to draw. And then -4, your opponent can only untap 2 of their energy for the next turn. So that's pretty nice. We don't play this Unison a ton. We're mainly playing it because we have to see a Unison on turn 2. So we don't want to rely on only the 4 of Vegeta's. And then the last Unison that we play are 2 of the SS2 Sun Gohan Z Fighter. This is just another way to close the game out. With the Gogeta, you're able to pitch extra Unisons to set up this Gohan's effect. It does have in power, so after you -3 on your Vegeta, you swing with your Vegeta. You then tap 3, play the Gohan. The Gohan has 4 markers on it. You can then -3 to get your triple attack off on the Gohan. So, really cheeky. That's our Unison lineup. Then kind of going into what I would consider to be the core of the Toppo Lock engine, we do have 2 Casserole, the Slash Striker. This just lets us search for Unisons or Universal 11 pieces. We're mainly going to kind of mulligan for one of these, or one of our Unisons in our opening hand. Turn 1, we'll play this, search the top 5, grab a Unison, and then go forward. Probably the MVP of the deck now is going to be Dispo Hyperspeed Strike. This card does everything for the deck. If you have a Unison in play, you can play it for 2 energy. It's a barrier, and then permanent when this card is in rest mode. If your opponent cannot attack your Unisons while this guy's in rest mode, and then when this card is switched to rest mode by one of your Unison effects, you restand it and pop one of your opponent's rest modes with an energy cost of 5 or less. So really important, really does everything. It keeps your opponent off their tempo. If they play a card on their turn, let's say they swing at your lead with it, you turn around the next turn, you play Dispo, you tap it with the Vegeta Unison of Fury, you pop the card they played, so they've lost their field presence, and then you have a 20k swing that has barrier that also protects your Unison. And then the last piece of what I would consider the Toppo Lock to be is God of Destruction Toppo Skill Breaker. We only play this at a 2 of, because sometimes it comes up, sometimes it doesn't. If your opponent manages to clear out the Unison, you can tap 4, play the Toppo, play a Vegeta with 3 energy on it, and then if you happen to tap the Toppo with the Unison of Fury's activate main effect, it'll restand and negate all skills on your opponent's side of the field. So it'll turn off their blockers, it'll turn off a number of different things. And the Toppo itself is a critical blocker deflect, so your opponent can't respond to it coming in. And then if you do already have a Unison on field, it becomes a double strike critical 20k. So super important, super impressive. I've had people peek my hand and just rip that Toppo out of hand because they knew it was going to be a pressure piece at later points during the game. Now moving into more of what I would consider to be generic yellow stuff, we play 4 of the Krillin Super Combo because drawing is winning. We play 2 Swift Retaliation Coolers because being able to turn off our opponent's negates with an integral swing is really important, especially when we get into some of our bigger power plays that we're only going to be able to make 1-ofs. So this card is broken, should probably have been hit on the ban list. We're going to play 2 because we can. Then we play 3 of the Vegeta Prideful Transformation. This is so we can play on our opponent's turn. Our opponent plays a battle card. We can respond with Vegeta Prideful Transformation, taps the card coming in, and then their opponent has just wasted their turn. Really powerful card. I used to go back and forth on this card, and at one point I took it out of the deck, and I ended up putting it back in just because I missed it so much. Like, the card is just that important to have. Then we play 4 Mecha Frieza Robotic Riposte. If your opponent does happen to amass a field on you, you want to be able to floodgate them out from making as many swings as possible or encouraging them to tap out so that you can crack back. One of the other reasons that we play this card is not just for the floodgate effect, but by its activate main effect, which we forget about a lot of the time. But basically, you can pay 2 yellow energy, choose 1 yellow Frieza with an energy cost of 4, and Mecha in its name in your hand and play it on top of this card. And we play 2 of the Clanetera Mecha Friezas to play off of that. Just a spicy tech that I've included in the deck. I think it was Jake that had suggested that I play this over some other piece that I was playing in the deck. He was like, man, just imagine you're playing against blue, you get to peek their hand, they have Hatchiyak in their hand, and you pull the Hatchiyak out of their hand, and they no longer have their Omni Negate. So, it's happened. I've actually done that before. Or being able to pick out a super combo that your opponent has in their hand, or some counterplay card, or something like that, that just stops their, that just completely disrupts what they were planning on doing. Plus it's a 20k double strike, which is nothing to snuff at. Then we're running 3 of the Shenron Cold-Hearted Shadow Dragon. This card does everything that Dispo doesn't do. Yeah, let's just read this card because it has so many keyword skills on it. It's Deflect, Unique Barrier Blocker, Counterplay, draw 1 card, play this card. Its energy cost is reduced by 2 if you have 7 cards in your Z energy battle area or drop area. And then auto, if your leader is yellow, when your opponent plays a card, choose that card, negate its skills for the turn. If you do, switch this card to active mode and negate the skill for the turn. So it's a 24,000 swing on your turn. Your opponent plays a card, you restand the Shenron, it's now a blocker, and you've negated the skill of the card coming into play. This card is super sticky, super frustrating to deal with. It's almost like dealing with a Poutine that actually serves a purpose on the field. Heads up, we're not playing Poutine anymore. So we are playing 3 of this guy. Then I played 2 of the Divine Transformation Friezas. These cards do a lot towards the end of the game. You don't want to see them early game, so I only run them at a 2 of. They are 5 energy to cast, which is up into our secret rare range. But Mecha Frieza does a lot for us. If your leader is yellow, when this card is played, choose all of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, KO them, and then flip one card in your life face down. At the end of the turn, switch this card to active mode. So it is a deflect double strike blocker, 25,000. It can't be removed from your battle area by your opponent's skills on the permanent. And then auto, when your opponent activates a counter skill, choose 2 of their cards, switch them to rest mode, and they can't be switched to active mode until the end of your opponent's next turn. So the card does a ton for the deck at the steep cost of costing you 5 energy. So if your opponent has, say you're playing against something that goes wide, they've managed to blow out your Unison, they've established a wide field, you want to reset their tempo, you play this guy, blow up the field, you now have a big bodied blocker that gets to restand at the end of the turn. It's a big pressure piece. If your opponent negates, you get to punish their tempo. Just a fantastic card. Another in-game pieces are Majin Buu Vile Onslaught. The big thing here is that it's activate main for 1 energy. If you have 4 more energy, you get to play this card from your hand. It's a 30,000 double strike. So that's really the only reason that we're playing this card. We're never going to get either of its other autos off because we're not playing Majin Buu or a Bibbidi leader or anything like that. Then we do play 1 Secret Identity Mass Saiyan. This is good for knocking out blocker tokens, or if your opponent, again, has a field built up of weenies, you can just Secret ID, blow up the field, swing for 25,000. One thing that I like doing is playing Secret ID, then cracking the -3 on my Unison, swinging with the Unison, playing another Unison, and then still being able to play another battle card at the end of the turn. So definitely an important card for the deck. And then the last battle card is going to be Golden Cooler Radiant Pride. This card is absolutely amazing in yellow strategies because yellow play this weird slow control tempo where your opponent just amasses resources in their hand and they can feel safe sitting on like 13 cards in their hand. And then you pay 5 energy for Golden Cooler. They have to Z-charge 8 of those 13 cards, and then you get to swing 5 times with this card after that, or block 5 times with this card, depending on, or maybe even more if they have other Z energy charged. So just perfect. I was kind of floating between this and the Gohan Piccolo, and I decided I needed the kill potential more than I needed the combo draw potential or flexibility of Gohan Piccolo, so we went with Cooler. Moving on to the extra cards, we've got Frieza Army Reinforcements. We've got 3 of these. These just protect the Unison. They let us get down to 4 life. A lot of times, though, you end up sitting at 6 life for a large priority of the game. What I've noticed is people really gun for the Unison super hard once you've cast the Unison. So your life tends to stay at 6. But once you go to 5, you can use these to manipulate yourself down to 4 so you can turn on your super combos and stuff like that. 2 Release from Evil. We are playing Unison, so these become free. These are absolutely cracked. If you can bait your opponent into going in on a swing with one of these guys in your hand, you can sometimes just win the game off of that alone. Like if your opponent has an activate main on their leader or a Unison effect they haven't activated before they swing, you can just crack one of these down and really just disrupt their turn. Or if they're swinging at you with a big triple strike attack, you can Release from Evil and knock that down to a single strike. So 2 of those. 2 Spirit Fists. These serve 2 purposes. They're a counterplay that'll rest mode something coming into play. But additionally, they're going to give our Unison 10,000 power for the turn. So on the Vegeta Unison of Fury, once we activate the -3, we're going to be able to use this to make that Vegeta Unison of Fury a 30,000 for the turn. So we'll get 2 swings that are 30,000 double strike out of that Unison for just having used one of these. If you can use 2, they're 40,000s, which puts them in secret rare range. So absolutely nut card. Kind of a flex spot. Can be other things if you want it to be. 2 Black Kamehamehas. We can use these to pop threats on our turn, or We can use them to detour large fields if your opponent happens to amass a field. This is one of those cards that I don't feel is as worth it as it used to be. Because we have dispos that really control the field for us, this card is less important, but if your opponent somehow manages to deal with your dispo, or you just don't see the dispo, these are nice to have instead. Then we've got Vegeta's Final Flash. Another card to bait out your opponent as, you know, they swing with a big double strike or triple strike. They combo their hand out. You put a Vegeta's Final Flash on it. You take 1 damage instead of the intended 2 or 3 and just win the game off of your opponent, overextending at that point. Those windows become fewer and fewer as the game moves on. Most people realize, oh, you're playing yellow, you've got 1 energy up, you probably have a Vegeta's Final Flash in hand. So, and then last card is going to be Power of a Super Saiyan. We can only run 1. If we could run more than 1, we would run more than 1. This card is snapped. And then just real quick, the Z deck isn't super important in Toppo Lock, but we are going to go over what I played for the Z deck. I'm not going to go into details for these cards. We're playing Gamma in case we come up against Villainous. We're playing Frieza for a 1 cost 15,000. We're playing Oolong for a 1 cost potential 40,000. We're playing Vegeta because it's a good pressure piece if we need it. We're playing Buu because it's a decent pressure piece if we need it. And then we're playing 2 SS Blue Sun Goku Evolved Defender. These are like poutine pluses in the game right now, so we do play 2 of those. This is actually the only card that I've ever played out of the Z deck in Toppo Lock, and it just so happened the turn that I did play this, I lost it immediately. So it ended up not really coming up or being that important. But that is my Toppo Lock list. This is my GOAT. This is my favorite deck of all time. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to me talk and ramble about it. I hope it was coherent. But as always, love y'all, nerds.